Hi. Let me figure out why it's so dark in my room, my office. I didn't have lights on and it's a rainy day. Okay, I promised self stigma. I promised to check my dissertation. And I've watched two TED Talk X's. I don't know what that means. I thought they were all just TED Talks. Maybe that means something specific. So, yeah. So I want to explain what information I felt I got from one of those TED Talks. It's a person with the illness, and they don't always reference studies. They want to share their experience of their diagnosis, medicine. The one woman was hospitalized. So I just want you to know that from my dissertation, 150 sources, and probably anything I read, at least one or two sources. I can sometimes say something that I pulled together from my research, and it kind of made a thought of mine, but a research-based thought of mine. That doesn't mean I'm an expert. I'm not a doctor. I did also watch a TEDx. I remember the doctor's name starts with an A. If you saw him, you would recognize him. He's bald and on the thin side, and he's a psychiatrist, and he diagnosed by taking pictures of the brain. I guess it's CT scans, but I'm not sure. But anyway, he's done that with 180,000 brains. He consults the NFL on the possible injuries to the brain. Sometimes they don't get to look at those brains until an NFL player passes. And there may be things they can do. I know they've adjusted the helmet quite a bit in the last 5 years. I would have to research that too. So, getting to self stigma, I found a lot, but I have to tell you where I found it. I just Googled self stigma, and the little AI gives you out information. And once they give you the first paragraph, they give you out an outline of topics by Roman numeral 1, letter A. So I outlined it, but I think what was said, I could probably go back and find the links they drew from. But there's a lot of truisms to what they find quickly on AI. So I want to share that. Then my dissertation. Then what I got from a TED Talk. I will give you her name and the title of the TED Talk. I would just recommend that if you watch it, she's sharing her experience to benefit people with the illness that might feel alone, like, nobody else has the illness. And, I appreciate her in general because all the autobiographies that I have were very helpful, because there's one way to look at this illness from the outside looking in, and then there's another way to express this illness from the inside the best they can. So I think knowledge on both is pivotal. So self-stigma in mental health is the internalization of public prejudice, where individuals with mental illness shamefully adopt negative stereotypes about themselves. Okay. So you have the outside stigma, and then you have what gets internalized. And the most I've read is shame. And one of the women that I watched in the TED Talks, they're like, you didn't ask for this, okay? If you're bipolar, you've been bipolar since youth. You didn't ask for it. And everybody brings up, give me a minute, diabetes, broken limbs. You would go for doctors for those things. So there really should be no stigma about going to the doctor for a mental disorder. But honest to goodness, there still is. If you were at a party where people know you are or don't know you are, and somehow, turn the conversation to mental illness, you'll see expressions on their face. Like I said, I wrote off a lot of schizophrenics because I didn't think there was any help. You'll see people do that, like, ugh, mental illness is scary. Ugh, mental ill people can hurt you. Well, that's not to say that people with heavy duty either by medicine or therapy, some of those people could hurt you. In all my research, and this is very well based on all my sources, 150, bipolar individuals are more likely to hurt themselves than hurt others. Does that mean always and never? No. But as I describe mania and depression and things, and mention suicidal ideation and suicide, and we'll kind of go over that here and there again, even though that's the hardest part to talk about for me. So let's move on. This creates a why try effect that reduces self-esteem, self-efficacy, and motivation. Seek treatment, often hindering recovery. Overcoming it involves fostering self-compassion, peer support, and when possible, empowering open disclosure, meaning that you feel comfortable sharing. Personally, I think we've used the word empower in the last 5 years too much, but there are still moments when it expresses the best way. So now this is like an outline. See the Roman numerals and the letters? AI didn't do that. I did it, so I might explain it to you better. Internalized shame. People with mental health conditions may believe they are flawed or blame themselves for their condition. Again, you were born with it. The only thing you could really fault yourself for is not going for help once you realized you needed help, or a good friend or a relative suggested it, because I pretty much feel like nobody would make that big of a suggestion unless there was something to it. And visiting a therapist, many people go to therapists and don't have mental illness. It helps them work through their life, get little ways to, to help yourself, like SNAP the other day, remember from the book? Sleep, nutrition, activity, and what was the P? People, I think. I could go back and look at that, but S was sleep, N was nutrition, and A was activity, like exercise. And I'll have to check on the P. How could I have forgotten that so fast? Okay, because that was a really simple thing to remember. Reduce self-esteem and efficacy. Efficacy is a word that kind of means that you can produce something. Like a metaphor would be your somebody's pregnant and they're producing a new life. So efficacy is when in your life you can produce things, in your job you can have ideas. And so self, the efficacy coming from you would be certainly better than you just having you and not things coming out of you, if that helps. Self-stigma causes individuals to feel less competent and confident in their abilities. Treatment avoidance. It creates a significant barrier to seeking help, following through with therapy due to fear of confirming stereotypes. So for whatever reason, somebody with a mental illness either avoids therapy or refuses to regularly take the medication that's been prescribed. It's sad to me because there are answers. Remember, I've been saying there's 16 different antidepressants. You could find the best one for you if you're taking one that ends up causing weight loss. In other words, probably saying yes to every appetite you have, so you eat and eat and eat, whatever. They can try another medicine. Of course, they have to take you off of that and then put that on the other. And I know that's been a lot of interest in patients. Is there a way you could prescribe something that doesn't help me, gain weight? Behavioral consequences. This can lead to social withdrawal, alienation, and a reduced quality of life. Why would we, or people with mental illnesses, want to reduce their quality of life? We only all get one life. Not to get philosophical or religious, we don't know how long our life is going to be. So getting the most out of it daily is something I think everybody wants to strive for. Strategies to overcome self-stigma. Self-compassion, practicing kindness towards oneself rather than harsh judgment. Peer support, connecting with others who share similar experiences to validate opinions. That is one of my original thoughts about creating this channel, that at some point I would interview people, or people would want to be interviewed about their experiences, and have people offer personal advice, not so much psychiatrist or or counselor advice. And certainly, even though I'm not a doctor and I'm not a counselor, I think I have the ability to keep that conversation on topic. The fact that the 3 videos that I watched this morning, 2 women who had the illness, who didn't do a lot of, quoting where they got their information from, but were recounting their experience. And I think they both expressed in the beginning or the end, I'm doing this so you're not the only person out there. I wanted this channel as that, as well as informational, things you can use to make your life better. But I want to always say, as I think in the beginning, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychiatrist. I have this colonel, my first dissertation advisor, who we ended up not ending my dissertation with, but she would tell me, you have this kernel of knowledge. My particular hypotheses and whether I could prove them or disprove them, and whichever way it went, it can go positively or negatively and still be research. I hope you've often heard that. They say it on Big Bang, as one of my favorite shows, all the time. Negative research is still search, positive research, all the better. So I have this kernel of information, and I have a lot of sources that I can steer you towards. And I'll tell you, these two women are not counselors and not doctors. They're simply sharing their experience to help you not feel alone. And Doctor with an A, and I'll look him up. He's a psychiatrist that uses imaging to help him diagnose. And I agree there's something to that, because they can take pictures of somebody without Alzheimer's and somebody with Alzheimer's, and they can see what's happening different in the regular brain and Alzheimer's brain. And he does this with all, mental situations in the brain, and he can show you it's lighting up here or it's not lighting up here. I think he's wonderful. And but I'd like to know more about his background. He does share his background. He's been doing this for like over 20 years. And, he came to the point where I think we should diagnose by using imaging and what comes out of the patient, so that we're more on target and we can get to the best help the soonest possible. So I agree with them there. I don't know with see, I don't know how many times he takes images of the brain. I worry because people say too many x-rays, too many CT scans, so many MRIs. Not good. We want to do them. We want doctors to only recommend them and do them not in a large quantity, even over your whole life. I believe that's true. I could look it up and make sure what I'm saying is very true. Education and empowerment. Here goes empowerment. I wish I could think of a synonym right now. Learning the mental health issues are often due to factors beyond one's control, biology, and environment. See, we haven't talked about environment. We talked about genetics, but environments, you know what? I want to write that down. Mental illness, environment. If I can find enough on that, maybe that would be tomorrow's topic. It'll depend. Okay. Advocacy and disclosure, sharing personal stories to challenge myths and promote understanding. That's what those two women were doing, and I'll name one. I didn't catch the name of the second person. Challenging negative thoughts, actively questioning and reframing self-stigmatizing beliefs. So there's what AI has to share with you. If you Google self-stigma, you could probably get this whole thing, but I think that was pertinent to share. Oh goodness, 18 minutes. All right, maybe I'll go to the woman that I'm talking about. Her TED Talk X is called From Broken to Blessed on the Bipolar Spectrum. Now, I don't often hear that, but what her inference was, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, unipolar. I haven't really heard it that much called as a spectrum, like the autism spectrum, but maybe I should have seen the date of when she did it. I probably won't get the order of this. Her name is Sarah, Sarah Sketchley, Schley. And I have 3 pages, and I'm sorry, I didn't keep them in order. All right, I'm not reading. I did this fast, so I'm not reading my handwriting real well. Reaching into yourself, listening without judgment, just do it, make appointments. Like, don't hesitate once you realize or somebody's helped you realize you need help. Create a posse. She called it posse. I call it a support network. And I think that's the term used more so than not. Uh, she did mention Dr. Schwartz from National, and it's National Alliance of Mental. I said National Association, but that's what my T-shirts are going to support. National Alliance of Mental Illness, and I don't know when the T-shirts are going to be available, but I'm going to order one, and I'm not making money. The money is going for the T-shirt and a donation, a significant donation to National Alliance for Medical Illness. It took 11 years for her to be diagnosed. That is not unusual. Remember, I said as a child, they can mix up ADHD, or a teenager, ADHD and bipolar disorder. And a lot of the mental illnesses, functioning autism, non-functioning autism. There's a lot of things in the mix that can look a little different. She's saying many bipolar 2, and she's describing her bipolar 2, end up homeless, addicted, or incarcerated. That's really sad news. And I don't think I put that anywhere in my research. She wanted to do this talk to save lives and maximize healing. The wrong meds can be dangerous and lethal. Lithium wrecks kidneys. She calls it a broken brain. I don't really like that terminology because I don't think any brain you're born with should be called broken. I know there are disabilities where the brain lacks a lot of function, but if you've basically functioned till you get this diagnosis, I wouldn't call it a broken brain. That's my personal opinion. Bipolar, you are not alone. There's help and hope. Whoever she went to first, the counselor, psychiatrist, did a bipolar diagnostic test. There are such things. I can do an episode on that. Bipolar diagnostic test. There are more than one, but that could be a whole episode. So her mother and grandfather, she didn't name what illness she had, but I think she said they both had depressive symptoms. And she said once she took that test and the counselor psychiatrist knew her mother and grandfather had problems, she was diagnosed in 15 minutes after 11 years. Let me just check one more place. Nope. I did all the notes I took from her. Gosh, it's 23 minutes. Let me just do 2 minutes of my dissertation because I'm so proud of it. Stigma and access to services. The definition of stigma used here is characteristic where one's social identity discredits and devalues something or someone. That's from Milkowitz 2011. That's that workbook we've been pointing to. Discreditable stigma applies to mental health as well. Discreditable stigma refers to a condition that is not easily identified, from Chang Calderon 2011, such as mental health. The symptoms of mental health are not always seen by the general population, making it easily discreditable. Okay, remember yesterday we had when you're balanced, that it's invisible to other people. So if they know you more balanced, they might not have a hint that there's any concerns of you being up or down. Both self-stigma and public stigma affect students with mental illness from seeking help. Many students want to remain anonymous, as telling people that they have mental illness can lead to challenges in creating relationships with peers. All right, so I want to address one thing I said before. And if I could talk to somebody at every college related to this situation, not to make it obvious where the counseling center is on campus. That doesn't mean, making it in a place where nobody can find it, but not having it so obvious that when people walk in that direction, that's where they're going. And I don't mean for this to be forever. There may come a point when you're willing to share. But in college, it's not adolescence, but it's still a lot of formulation of your personality, and the brain doesn't finalize until 25. And I can also look up more facts about that. So I hope that helps. I hope you remember, if somebody on TED Talk mostly talks about themselves, you're getting an idea of how somebody else suffers with it. But if they're not giving you references like I do every day, you need anything that they said that was interesting and important to you, you probably need to research. Okay. And we can pick up, there's not a big section in my dissertation for stigma and self-stigma. We can pick up there tomorrow. I can look up how environment affects mental illness, bipolar diagnostic tests, and about the brain being finally solidified at the age of 25. I might not be able to handle all of that tomorrow, but we'll start with my dissertation and we'll see how much I can accomplish with the other three. So have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.